Hello, everybody. Hello, YouTube. Hello. Welcome to day 8 of your real estate courses. Today, we are diving right back into the reading. We've got 50 pages of reading to knock out, chapter 25. And really quick, I had a question for me in the Zoom session. How much money can we expect to make in our first year? And the truth is that completely depends on you, your work ethic, a little bit of luck. Some people, you can't get them to stop working. They wake up, they just work hard. And the truth is, there's a lot of 18, 19-year-old, 20-year-old that they're willing to take out the trash. They're willing to clean the bathroom. You're willing to do all of those things anyway that other people are not willing to do. They think they're too good for it. They think they're too proud or whatnot. I can tell you when I was 18, 19, 20 years old, there's a lot of things that I was willing to do for money. I worked at In-N-Out, I worked at Blockbuster Video. I did professional theater. I did some fun stuff as well. But at the end of the day, if I had real estate as an opportunity, I would have out hustled everybody at 18 years old. It's a totally different type of situation. I reffed basketball. I did carpentry. I did all sorts of different things. But I can tell you, there's a lot of money to be made in real estate. And just like I was talking about in the chat, in our situation where we are in California, if the average commission that you make at the lower split where you're coming in is, let's say $7,000, that's a lot of money. It's a lot of money for you to, it's a lot of jingle in your pocket. So when we get into a situation where some of these young people do really well in real estate, I don't see them for a little while. They might duck out. I haven't seen you in a few months. And at the end of the day, I don't begrudge anyone anything. If you decide that you do well and you want to take some time off, all the more power to you. I'm not your boss. You got to do what you got to do. But at the end of the day, anytime that you take off of work, it definitely makes it hard to get started again. So day 8 notes, we're going to jump back into the reading. We're going to read chapter 25, which is operating in a buyer's license or buyer's listing. Chapter 26, finders, non-licensee referral service. This is what you guys are going to be doing. This is what we've been talking about for a while here. We've got the commission bootcamp starting for the adults here next week, which you guys can jump in on if you want to participate. And we're going to break that down in chapter 26 today. So that's very exciting. The purchase agreement, chapter 28, agency confirmation provision, chapter 29, the appraisal report, and then chapter 30, escrow, the way to perform. So here we go, jumping into the reading. We got 50 pages and 57 minutes to get this done, which means that we're probably going to have a little bit of homework, but let's get started here. So this is chapter 25, operating under a buyer's listing. A prerequisite to representation. Most brokers realize a signed buyer's listing agreement produces the maximum financial return for the effort, money, and talent an agent invests when representing an individual interested in buying property. Real estate services have great value to members of the public. This is evident by the fact that nearly all buyers and sellers use an agent to assist them meet their real estate objective. Often, members of the public are allowed to exploit the time and talent of agents without payment. Prospective buyers learn what they need to know about the MLS properties and fail to return when they decide to buy. So when you counsel a potential buyer, before giving advice or commencing efforts to locate qualifying properties, ask the buyer to enter into a written commitment, retaining you to work with them as their exclusive agent. In exchange, you agree to diligently engage yourself to the best of your abilities to do what is necessary to meet their objective. Now, this is a highly debated topic in the real estate world. There are some people that jump right into getting people to sign a buyer's listing agreement, write the buyer's representation agreement in their initial buyer's consultation, and they'll put in a term of use, 6 months, for these specific properties. There's some people that never have their client sign a buyer's representation agreement. I am one of those people. I'm one of the latter, where I don't have people sign paperwork with me, and I have been in a situation where I've gotten stung quite a few times. I've missed out on quite a bit of money, but at the end of the day, some people are shady, and I don't want to treat everybody like they're shady because I've worked with a few people that are shady, right? So the exclusive right to buy. An exclusive right to buy listing agreement is used by brokers and their agents to prepare and submit prospective buyers their offer to render services on their behalf as the buyer's real estate agent. Under it, you are employed to locate properties sought by the buyer. In exchange for the buyer's assurance, you will be paid a fee when the buyer acquires types of properties they seek. A buyer who refuses to enter into a written listing agreement with a broker and their agent demonstrates a clear intention to the buyer that does not want them as the representative. What this unlisted buyer likely wants is an agent to act as a locator or a finder of properties, providing valuable information without any obligation to compensate them for their assistance. Possibly the buyer has not yet committed themselves to buy a property, just looking, thank you very much. My friend Zach likes to say that who you guys will meet as a part of Commission Bootcamp. Did you already meet him? Did we already do that course? Anyway, he likes to say that everybody is just looking until they meet a sales agent. Without the buyer's written promise to pay a fee, you're entitled to nothing when your buyer goes around you and acquires property on which you provided them with information. Without the buyer's written promise, no fee has been earned, which is collectible from anyone unless you arranged a fee-sharing agreement with the seller's broker documenting the buyer as your client, a condition which presents other risks. The fee payment agreement bargain. Various working relationships and compensation arrangements may be struck between a prospective buyer and their agent. Writings, by their nature, are intended by all who enter into them to be enforced. This includes a signed buyer's listing calling for a payment of a fee when the buyer's objective of acquiring property is met. Really quick, there's also some really shady practices where people do things where they write into their buyer's representation agreements that they demand to be paid a 3.5% commission, regardless of whether or not the seller pays the commission. Now, at the end of the day, the seller is the one that pays the 5%, 6% commission split between the two agents. Well, most buyer's agents know that a lot of times 2.5% is pretty average. Sometimes you'll see 2%. Sometimes you'll see even less. But what they'll do is they'll make it a requirement of their buyers to make sure that they net a 2.5%, 3.5% commission, regardless of whether or not the seller offered it, and that comes out of their cost. So, a note to all of you people out there that are buyers that not all agents are created equally or are going to treat you equally. Editor's note: all assurances of a brokerage fee on a real estate transaction are required by contract law to be in writing and signed by the person who agrees a fee will be paid, regardless of whether or not the fee will be paid by that person or another party of the transaction. The following situations demonstrate the various likelihoods of collecting a fee for assisting a buyer. No listing exists. Neither the seller nor the buyer has formally employed a broker. Usually, the seller acting without a broker is an experienced real estate investor, subdivider, land speculator, real estate owned property, REO, lender, or other well-seasoned owner capable of negotiating a real estate transaction without representation. Now, this is a basic buyer's representation listing agreement. It talks about the period for which it covers. So if you wanted to enter into it for a 6-month period, I've heard about people entering into it for a year. It breaks all of the basics down, and then, like I said, you can. Some people make sure that they get paid the 2.5% regardless of whether or not it's being offered. Now, more often than not, anyway, it is between the seller and the buyer, and that the MLS is binding. This isn't the kind of thing to where you have to have a buyer sign this type of thing to make sure that you get paid by the seller. Anyway, we're not going to get too off in the woods on this because we've got 50 pages to read. 2, a one-shot seller's listing exists. A buyer is willing to make an offer through an agent who located an unlisted property and other properties at the buyer's request and brought it to the buyer's attention. The agent fails to have the buyer enter into an exclusive right to buy listing. Before preparing it and submitting an offer from the buyer, the agent solicits the seller for and obtains a one-shot right to sell listing containing a promise to pay a fee. On getting the listing, the agent prepares and submits an offer to the buyer. So this is a fee-sharing agreement. Okay, that's the backside of the fee-sharing agreement. 3, customer turned client. An agent employed by a broker in an office with numerous listed properties is contacted by a prospective buyer. The buyer is exposed to all of the relevant in-house listings, none of which are an immediate interest to the buyer. Having exhausted the in-house inventory of the property for sale by clients, the agent may choose to see the buyer off, or the agent might better consider making arrangements with the buyer to locate qualifying properties listed by other brokers and unlisted properties, FSBOs, and present them to the buyer. If the buyer agrees the agent is to locate qualifying properties, the agent needs to first ask for and obtain a signed buyer's listing agreement. If the agent is to be assured payment of fee when the buyer acquires property, the buyer needs to enter into a buyer's listing agreement. 4. A buyer's listing agreement exists. The agent's broker is employed by the buyer in a signed exclusive right to buy listing agreement to represent the buyer by locating and negotiating the purchase of suitable property of the type sought by the buyer. A seller of a suitable property may or may not have signed a seller's listing agreement with another broker. Either way, the buyer's broker controls the amount and destiny of their fee to be paid when their buyer buys. Agency duty owed to buyers. Special agency duties are owed to a buyer when a broker and their agents undertake to locate property on the buyer's behalf. The duty to the buyer, The duty to the buyer first arises when the broker enters into an exclusive right to buy agreement with the buyer or presents property information to an unlisted buyer who they have agreed to assist by locating qualifying properties suitable to the buyer. When representing a buyer under a written exclusive right to buy employment agreement, the broker and their agents has entered into a bilateral employment agreement. Such an employment obligates the broker through their agents to exercise due diligence by way of a constant and continuing search to locate qualifying properties while keeping the buyer informed of their progress. Without an exclusive right to buy listing, the brokerage duty which exists to locate properties for a buyer are best effort obligations created by an oral or written open listing called a unilateral employment agreement. A best effort obligation requires no affirmative action, diligence on the part of the broker's office to locate a property. However, under a buyer's listing, be it written, exclusive, or oral open, the act of delivering property information to the buyer they are assisting obligates the broker and the agents to use due diligence in their efforts to gather readily available data on the property under review, assist in the analysis and consequences of the property data gathered, and advise the buyer regarding the property in any proposed transaction in a conscientious effort to act honestly and to care for and protect the buyer's best interest. When acting as the buyer's agent regarding the acquisition of a particular property, due diligence includes disclosing facts about the integrity of the property, and so this is a real estate marketing blip, which we'll get back to, and recommending investigative. Oh, this is that's from my wife. We'll get back to that later. I think that something worked out escrow-wise. We'll check that out in a bit. Either way, forgot to switch that on airplane mode. My apologies, my homies. Without an exclusive employment with a buyer on those behalf of the agent is locating the properties, the agent is reduced to a mere locator or finder. Worse, the buyer's agent is burdened with the affirmative agency duties of utmost care and protection owed their buyer when reviewing properties listed with other brokers, even if they are not acting under written exclusive right to buy listing agreement with that buyer. Now, a finder, what they're talking about, they're relegated to the duties of a finder. They found and identified somebody who needs to buy and sell real estate. And at that point, they're basically acting as an unlicensed agent. They're not guaranteeing themselves an opportunity to get paid. And so what we do with the program is different than what's being referred to here. Provisions for payment of a fee. An exclusive right to buy agreement contains the same provisions found in exclusive right to sell agreements. In exchange for the broker's promise to use due diligence while rendering services to comply with their end of the employment bargain, the buyer promises in the exclusive right to buy listing agreement to pay the broker a specific fee. Fees are either a fixed dollar amount or percentage of the price paid, but may be set at an hourly rate. Fixed and percentage fees are contingent fees. So I won't explain that further. They are earned when the buyer enters into a binding purchase agreement during the buyer's listing period to acquire the type of property described in the buyer's listing. However, buyers, like the sellers, often do not enter into the purchase agreement during the period of employment. Thus, on expiration of the listing, the buyer's broker has not earned a fee. An event triggering payment of the promised fee has not yet occurred. The fee provisions in a buyer's listing agreement include a safety clause, which provides added protection against a lost fee for services rendered in regard to specific properties during the listing period. Under the safety clause, the buyer's broker is entitled to collect a fee if, within an agreed period after the expiration of the buyer's listing, information specific to the property was provided to the buyer by the buyer's agent during the listing period. On expiration of the buyer's listing, the buyer is handed an itemized list which identified those properties the buyer's agent brought to the buyer's attention needed to be perfect the broker's right to a fee. The buyer entered into negotiations with the owner of a registered property, and the safety period negotiations ultimately resulted in the buyer acquiring an interest in the property. Now here, really quick, I just want to kind of point out the fact that this is in the perfect world. This is in the ideal world where, law matters and people do the right thing. I can tell you that you are going to have people that are going to end up circumnavigating you and are going to end up going and seeing a property with you and then writing an offer with their friend, their neighbor, their brother, their father, their son, etc., and so forth. And so the truth is sometimes pursuing the commission for some of those things ends up making you feel like a dirtbag, and you'll end up just shrugging it off. You're like, whatever, I am done with it, and you wash your hands of it. And in addition, and here's the truth as well, you could have all of the paperwork in the world signed, and then they could walk into a new home build, which you may have even sent them, and then you could still be cut out of the deal. So the truth is you're going to need to tell your clients, which is what I always tell people, make sure that you do not go see any properties without me. If you walk in without me, it's like you're walking into a car lot. I can't help you. It's like walking into a Walmart and buying something off the shelves. There's no way for me to be involved in the transaction whatsoever and to be compensated for the amount of time that I've invested in you and your family. So just speak frankly with people. People will appreciate your professionalism. Okay, under the safety clause, the buyer's broker is entitled to collect a fee. We already went through all of this stuff. The buyer's liability for the brokerage fee. The buyer under a listing agreement promises to pay a full brokerage fee on the acquisition of property. However, in practice, the buyer will nearly always close the purchase without directly paying the promised brokerage fee. It is the seller who typically pays the fee the buyer has promised their agent. Further, when the property purchased is listed with another broker, the buyer's broker will typically accept a lesser amount for their fee than the fee amount the buyer agreed to pay under the buyer's listing. Can the broker enforce the fee arrangement in the buyer's listing and recover the balance of the agreed to fee from the buyer when the buyer's broker accepts a lesser fee from the seller or the seller's broker? No. The buyer's obligation to pay the brokerage fee is fully satisfied when the buyer's broker agrees to accept the fee from the seller or the seller's broker, which is nearly always the case. Chapter 5 summary. Chapter 26, finders, a non-licensee referral service. Here we go. This is the part of the book that nobody knows about, that you can make commission while you are pursuing your real estate license. So this is a very exciting chapter for me to read to you guys. This is important, especially for you, my friend. Here we go. Okay, agency relationships and real estate transactions. 3 classes of real estate agents have established in California. Licensed brokers, licensed sales agents, and unlicensed finders. See Form 115 accompanying this chapter. A finder working for a principal is a distinguished form. A licensed broker working for a principal. The homework this week, this Friday, is we're going to go over this form, and I want you to actually practice filling one of these out, and we're going to do that during class on Friday. Licensed brokers and sales agents, which is day 10 of the program. Licensed brokers and sales agents owe fiduciary duties to the principals they represent. Fiduciary duties require licensees to perform on behalf of their client with the utmost care and diligence. An unlicensed finder has no such fiduciary duty. A finder's function as an agent, quote unquote, is limited to locating, identifying, and referring potential real estate clients or participants to brokers, agents, or principals in exchange for the promise to be paid a fee, which we have already discussed. We are paying 25%. Limitations are placed on the conduct of a finder. A finder lacks when they talk about fiduciary duty, that means that you do not legally represent this person that you're referring on to a licensed agent. The licensed agent and the broker is going to assume responsibility, have due diligence with the client, and at that point you're actually done, and you're in a situation to where you're waiting to get paid. Okay. Limitations are placed on the conduct of a finder. A finder lacks legal authority to participate in any aspect of property information dissemination or other transactional negotiations. Although not licensed by the Department of Real Estate, DRE, or accepted as members of the Real Estate Trade Association, finders are authorized by state codes to locate prospective buyers, sellers, borrowers, lenders, tenants, or landlords for referral to real estate licensees or principals. Thus, they provide leads about individuals who may become participants in real estate transactions. Now, the Finder program that we're working on is actually going to work on providing you with more tools with which you can generate leads so that you have more opportunities and more at-bats to get paid. A finder finding and introducing parties. A finder, those of you who are enrolled in real estate school, providing referral services in California for a fee, may find and introduce parties, locate parties for referral to others, and be employed by principals or brokers. That would be us employing you guys and then paying you guys directly. A finder may not take part in any negotiations. Hey, I saw it listed for this. What are you going to do for my clients? Discuss the price. You cannot talk about price at all. You cannot talk about loans. Discuss the property. You can't even discuss specific properties. If they call you about a property, you've got to talk about the professional that you are going to set them up with, that you are an agent in training, and that you are a finder working towards being licensed. And discuss the terms or conditions of the transaction. So if they start talking about commission and things like that with you, I am not licensed yet. I'm a student. I'm going to set you up with a professional. Okay. A finder who crosses into any aspect of negotiation which leads to the creation of a real estate transaction needs a real estate license, and they are both soliciting and negotiating. Unless licensed, an individual who enters into negotiations supplying property or sells information cannot collect a fee for services rendered, even if they call it a finder's fee. Also, the finder is subject to a penalty of up to $20,000 and or 6 months in jail for engaging in brokerage activities without a license. In addition, a broker who permits a finder or anyone else in their employee or their agent's employee to perform any type of licensed work beyond locating a referral may have their license suspended or revoked. We take this very seriously. I've already talked to agents about not developing their own finder program. We have a way for you guys to practice, to be supervised. We have scripts that we're developing which don't require you to talk about specific properties, to talk about price, which identify you as a student or an agent in training. And there's all sorts of ways for people that, in fact, I believe that people are going to be less threatened by students practicing real estate than they are real estate agents in a lot of ways. RESPA limits authority to split fees. The Real Estate Settlement Procedures Act, RESPA, prohibits brokers from giving or accepting a referral fee if the broker or their agent is already acting as a transaction agent in the sale of a 1 to 4 unit residential property, which is being funded by a purchase assist federally related loan. However, there are 2 major exceptions. A broker and their agents are not involved in a RESPA transaction when they're negotiating the sale, lease, or encumbrance of any of the following types of properties: apartment buildings with 5 or more units, commercial buildings, agricultural properties, business opportunities, vacant land, other than those involving 1 to 4 unit residential construction loans, properties containing 25 or more acres, leases and rental agreements, all cash transactions, and seller carryback transactions where no federally related loan is originated. Business development and RESPA. A broker and their agents need to develop methods for generating business. If not, their business model will produce insufficient numbers of clientele to provide enough earnings to keep them from being driven out of the real estate brokerage profession. Many methods for finding and soliciting clientele exist. The source of clients, most often discussed, is the referral. In fact, agents not employed by media franchise brokers are said to live by referrals alone. This is the case with my business. I'm telling you, this school, what you guys are doing, what you're learning right now is golden. I'm hoping that other real estate schools, other brokerages are going to start taking this idea on and running with it, because we need to start eliminating the barrier between getting signed up and the paycheck. Okay, the referral is extraordinarily important. Many methods for finding, we already read that paragraph. Brokers also cooperate amongst themselves, as in broker-to-broker referrals between different segments of the brokerage community. For example, a property manager refers to a home buyer to the MLS sales agent, or an MLS agent refers to a prospective tenant to a property manager. Brokers and agents in single-family residences, sales rarely develop a client base of home buyers large enough to sustain a decent standard of living from sales fees generated solely by transactions handled on behalf of these prior clients. Thus, a business model for finding and locating clients on a regular basis needs to include sources others than clients personally located by the broker. Many methods exist to generate new clients. Advertising through printed and electronic digital media to solicit clients is fundamental promotion and expected by all. I'm telling you, this whole like street team type aspect that we're developing is really going to end up making it very easy for a lot of people to get paid, in my opinion. Fees through personal solicitation. And then also when you get a chance to celebrate your first paycheck before you even get licensed, that the amount of momentum that would do for your career, because then you're already going to be able to say, oh, I've already found people that have closed transactions. I've already been paid. And who can say that? Like, I don't know a single agent that has ever been paid as a finder, because no one even knows that this program exists. Fees through personal solicitation. On the other hand, finding and locating a client becomes a more focused and arduous task when a broker's business model expands beyond exclusive use of media into the time-consuming but rewarding task of personally soliciting clients. That's what we're going to do. That's exactly what we're going to do. Licensed agents place themselves directly between their employing broker and the prospective client when the employing broker refers clients directly to their agent. An agent takes floor time to solicit new clients who call in response to media advertising and the brand name the broker has established. An agent canvasses a neighborhood or section of the community in a classic ongoing farming operation to find and solicit new clientele for their broker, but brand themselves in the process. And by the way, farming is working one specific neighborhood, demographic, etc., where you're continuously basically planting seeds, harvesting, tilling the soil, and then looking to reap the rewards in the long run. An agent extends their reach to potential buyers and sellers of SFRs by inducing both licensed and unlicensed individuals to be team members who locate and solicit clientele for the agent and the broker activities, which are permitted both by RESPA and DRE regulations. The beautiful thing about this program is you can do it anywhere in the state of California. So if you're working up there in Mount Shasta, if you're working in the Bay Area, if you're in Fresno, if you're in San Diego, and you call because you have a referral for me and you are enrolled in real estate school, I've got it from there. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you this agreement, or you're going to send me the finder agreement, and then I'm going to pay you when we close escrow. Our community is going to pay you, and that is going to set this whole thing off. Haya. The employment of unlicensed finders, locators of buyers and sellers will extend the agent's business to bring earnings to levels sufficient to sustain their sought-after standard of living. This is permissible. State and federal regulations on this arrangement are straightforward, and compliance is relatively easy. State and federal regulations. These regulations address the relationship between the finder, locator, and the broker agent, and members of the public and finders, locators acting on behalf of brokers and agents. All employees of a broker need to be hired under written contracts of employment. This includes licensed agents, administrative staff, and finders. Written contracts are entered into to delineate the responsibilities each is undertaken. Provisions limit their conduct to what regulations allow for their licensed or unlicensed status. So just for the record, because there are people who are going to be getting paid while going through our community's real estate school who might end up joining a different team, might end up going and working with their friend, et cetera, and so forth. That's okay. While you're pursuing this, we can still generate that lead for you, send it out, and then pay you while you're enrolled in the real estate school. These employments, the finder included, are not casual relationships since a fee is paid by the broker. Casual relationships the broker agent develop with friends, neighbors, past clientele, social contacts, our word of mouth network of goodwill, and viral adverts, which generate referrals for which no fee is paid. Employed individuals generate business for the broker agent and thus are paid. However, the employed finder is limited to locating new clientele for the broker agent. Fee sharing by a broker under RESPA. RESPA's goal is to prohibit activity which artificially drives up the cost buyers and sellers pay for services needed to close a sale. Artificial costs include duplicate fees, charged for services implicitly covered by the provider's basic fee. Double dipping is the concern. RESPA, like conditions stated in a title insurance policy, initially set out the blanket rule as the starting point for arriving at the final conditions. RESPA's opening statement of purpose holds that no referral fee can be paid or received by settlement service provider, broker, escrow, lender, who will be rendering transactional services in exchange for compensation in a RESPA sale, concurrent or origination of mortgage, financing as part of a 1 to 4 unit residential sale. Likewise, a title insurance policy initial statement proclaims no encumbrance of any type exists on the title being insured. The policy provisions then proceed to list exclusions, exemptions, and conditions which nearly neuter the initial general statement. Here too, RESPA codes provide several exceptions allowing fee sharing by a broker in a mortgage-financed home sale. These exceptions permit the broker to conduct orderly business development for their brokerage income, which does not violate the RESPA principle of avoiding double dipping referrals among providers with sales transactions or surcharges. 2. RESPA exceptions go to the heart of sourcing new clientele and sourcing fees by brokers. Referral fees paid to or received from other brokers, known as horizontal disbursement from one broker to another, but only if neither broker is involved as a loan broker or a lender in the home sale of the transaction, and fees paid by the broker to the broker employed licensed sell agent or unlicensed finder, known as vertical disbursement, within the broker's office, not paid to providers or third parties connected to the home sale transaction. DRE further limitations. While both of these exceptions to RESPA permit payment of fees under federal law, DRE regulations limit the conduct of these individuals, which actually rendering services for a fee permitted by RESPA. While the RESPA exceptions allow fee splitting activity, DRE regulations require fee splitting to be limited exclusively to payments between brokers, who then may split the fee vertically with agents they employ, or payments by a broker to their employees, licensed and non-licensed, which that's what we would be participating in here. The latter, B, payments by a broker to their employees, licensed and non-licensed. Thus, while RESPA allows agents and finders who are employed by a broker to receive fees from the broker for generating business, DRE regulations and statutory case law set forth the limit of conduct each type of employee may undertake with the clientele. To satisfy RESPA, the employment of a finder needs to be under an agreement where the employee finder is obligated to report to the broker every prospect located of the sort of the broker is looking for. The employee finder's sole purpose is to generate business for their broker, and the finder does not have the freedom by contract to refer a prospect to just any broker. Meaning, if you find a lead and you want to refer it to a friend who is currently licensed, even if they referred you to me, you have to go to me, and then I may be able to refer it to your friend. And so that's the way to go. That you cannot do it directly because you cannot work this referral directly. It's going to have to come through us. 3 classes of finders with different expectations for a referral fee exist under RESPA. Friends of past customers, or friends or past customers who pass on tips to brokers and or sales agents. Individuals who sell leads lists to brokers, and bona fide employees or brokers who generate business for their employing broker, classified as financial services representatives, FSRs. Entitlement to a fee under RESPA. Finders are also entitled to a fee for referrals under RESPA, depending on the type of finder they are. A friend or past customer type of unlicensed finder who is not under contract and thus not employed by a broker is not entitled to a finder's fee when the transaction contemplated is a RESPA control. If RESPA did not control, this type of finder would be entitled to a fee under California law if agreed to by a broker. A bona fide employee of a broker, such as an FSR, is not barred from collecting a fee or salary from their employee broker, since employed individuals are exceptions to RESPA. A person who sells lead list is also able to legally collect a fee under both RESPA and non-RESPA transactions. Lead lists are considered goods and are perfectly legal in California, as well as under RESPA exceptions for goods and services actually furnished, which is what you see a lot of companies participating in is lead generation companies. Lead generation companies, though, the truth is a lot of these leads are bunk, which is why this finder program is going to be so good, is it's going to be coming from somebody who already knows, likes, and trusts you, and then that way the referral is coming from a place of trust, from a school, from you, from a student. The finder's fee bargain. Generally, a finder's fee is a lump sum of money amount or a percentage of the fee, 25%, received by the broker on a transaction which is closed due to the finder's referral. Only sound economics control the amount of the fee a broker, agent, or principal should pay a finder for a lead. Also, no limit is placed on the amount of volume or referral conducted by a finder. Further, while brokers may collect advance fees from principals, finders may not. Advance fee operators masking themselves as finders for principals sometimes collect fees up front, a prohibited activity for unlicensed individuals. Entitlement to a fee under California law. A finder is entitled to a fee as an unlicensed individual if the finder locates, places, introduces, or delivers up names of a prospective client to a broker or a principal. You let me know. We set it up from there. Finder's fee agreement, and this is what you guys are going to be filling out later. Here we go. It's really simple. See this form? It is a one-page form. This form is used by an agent when the employee and the unlicensed individual to locate, solicit, and refer or identify persons who need the services of the broker. Oh, darn it. Shucks. Hold up 1 second here. We jumped right up. There we go. So you would fill out the date in consideration for services to be rendered by your name as the finder, and then broker contracts with finder to refer to a broker, a prospective client in the need of services as either a buyer or an owner-seller. You could also do a tenant, but the truth is you know the commissions with tenants are so low that it would not necessarily be something that would be exciting. This is also something that I've encouraged NMLS people who are lenders. If they get involved in this program, you could end up in a situation to where they could generate leads for lenders. Okay, 2, finder agrees not to participate in or conduct any negotiations with their prospective client or solicit loans on behalf of the prospective client. Finder is not licensed by the California Bureau of Real Estate, CalBRE, which is now CalDRE. The prospective client is identified as your name, your address, your telephone number. Further referrals of prospective clients may be included in this agreement. Absolutely. If there's spin-off business, you're entitled to it. The real estate involved, if any, is referred to as, this is where we put the address that we end up settling on. This was not something that you would have to put in right away because, of course, you are not finding the property, you are finding the person. The legal description, assessor's parcel. So the APN is more something that you would locate for land. But again, this is something that's filled out later. As compensation for each referral by finder, broker agrees to pay finder the following amount. So a dollar amount. Some people will put in a dollar amount, but what we do, it's 25%. 25% of the broker's fee received on the first transaction with each prospective client. And then a percentage of the purchase paid on the first transaction with each prospective client on which a broker receives a fee. So you could do B or C. C would set you up in perpetuity, which means that on if you get more spin-off business from that, I think is what that means. Each prospective client on which the broker receives a fee. Yep, 25%. 6, finder's compensation is earned and payable on the close of the first transaction involving each prospective client. And then, let's see, if prospective client does not enter into, so you would just mark A, and then you would move on. And then agree to the terms stated above. You sign the part on the right. You put your signature. You have to put your social security number because you are an employee. You send it to us, educateempowerexplore@gmail.com. And then we will contact you. We'll put in our information on the left-hand side. The broker would be eXp Realty. The number would be my number, which would be 019444761. And then it would be by myself, my business address, which I will give you later, and then my phone number, of course. If you have any questions about this stuff, it's 951-691-7798. That is my personal cell phone number, 951-691-7798. If you do call me, leave a voicemail, and that I will get back to you. And then our email here at the school is educateempowerexplore@gmail.com. A finder's fee agreement entered into between a finder and a principal regarding the finder's referral service needs to be evidenced in writing, signed by the principal who employed the finder. If not, the finder cannot enforce their fee agreement with the principal. I'm going to be signing it. I'm not going to hold this hostage. I'm not going to be complicating it. I'm really excited to be working with everybody who's finding this material. You're going to get me paid. I want to get you paid. It's as simple as that. When you eat, I eat. Isn't that the definition of a tribe anyway? However, the principal's use and benefit of a finder's referral under an oral finder's fee agreement, such as closing a sale with an individual referred by the finder, will substitute for a written agreement. Yes, an oral will agree. This video, at the end of the day, would probably hold up, which is why I'm putting it all on the record. I'm not hiding anything from anybody. Just, I'm putting it all out there. Conversely, oral fee agreements between a broker or their agents and finders are enforceable. No written agreement is required between a broker and their agents and a finder. However, writing memorializes the agreement as documentation against memories to the contrary and is conformance with the DRE regulations. So that being said, people make mistakes, people forget. Make sure that people are not capable of making any mistakes. I tell people all the time, the way that you protect yourself is if it is not in writing, it doesn't exist. Okay, here we go. We're still moving. We have 17 more minutes left in class. We have quite a bit more reading, about 40 more pages in reading. This will probably be a day where we end up with some homework, but the truth is this is the day where we covered the finder's fee agreement, which is extraordinarily important to those of you who are looking to start working right away as a finder. And again, Commission Boot Camp starts on January 25th. Feel free to reach out to myself or Amy Serpa or anyone else on the team to get access to that. The purchase agreement, types and variations. A newcomer's entry as a real estate agent into vocation of soliciting and negotiating real estate transactions typically begins with the marketing and locating of a single-family residence. As a seller's agent or a buyer's agent, also known as a listing agent and selling agents respectively. Other properties an agent might include 1 to 4 unit residential properties, apartments, commercial income properties, office buildings, commercial units and industrial space, agricultural property, or unimproved parcels of land. For real estate sales conveying ownership of a property, the primary document used to negotiate the transaction between a buyer and seller is a purchase agreement form. Different types of properties each require a different variety of purchase agreement. Various purchase agreements comprise provisions necessary to negotiate the sale of a particular type of property. 3 basic categories of purchase agreements exist for the documentation of real estate sales. The categories are influenced primarily by, all right, that is our 5-minute warning, which typically means we've got 5 minutes left in class. That being said, we started class about 10 minutes late because I was answering some questions. We were having a little conversation before we got started. So I want to have you guys have as always, as less homework as possible. So we're going to go 10 minutes over, okay? We'll make sure that our recording wraps up at 60 minutes. The three categories of purchase agreement are 1 to 4 unit residential property sale transactions, other than 1 to 4 unit residential property sale transactions, such as residential and commercial income properties and owner-occupied business farming properties and land acquisition transactions. Within each category of purchase agreement, several variations exist. The variations cater to the specialized use of some properties, the diverse arrangement for payment of the price, and to the specific conditions which affect the property, particularly with the 1 to 4 unit residential property categories. Purchase agreement variations. Purchase agreement variations for 1 to 4 unit residential sales transactions include purchase agreements for negotiating the conventional financing of the purchase price, negotiating a short sale, negotiating a cash to new or existing mortgage, or a seller carryback note. A seller carryback is like when somebody owns a piece of land, and let's say that the land is worth $250,000, and they say like with a 10% down, the seller will carry. And so your buyer will put $25,000 down, and then the carry means the seller will continue to hold title on the property, but will also hold the $225,000 as the buyer makes payments. Okay, moving on. Negotiating a short sale, we already talked about that. Negotiating for separate brokerage fees paid each broker by their client. Negotiating the government-insured financing of purchase price. Negotiating the sale of an owner-occupied residence in a foreclosure to an investor called an equity purchase agreement. Negotiating an equity purchase short sale. Direct negotiations between the principals, buyers, and sellers without either party being represented by the real estate agent, and negotiating highly specialized transactions using a short form purchase agreement which does not contain a boilerplate provisions setting forth the terms for payment of the price, which allows the agent to attach specialty addenda to the terms for payment, the carryback arm, equity sharing addenda, etc. Variations among purchase agreements used in income property and owner-occupied business property sales transactions include purchase agreements for the conventional financing of the purchase price and the down payment note financing of the purchase price. Finally, a variation exists for land sales of parcels of real estate which no improvements in the form of buildings and for farm and ranch sales. Editor's note: for a full-size fillable copy of this or any other form in this book that may be used for your professional practice, go to realtypublications.com/forms. That's a great place to go. Realty Publications is First Tuesday's publishing company, as far as I know. Escrow instructions provide yet another variation on the purchase agreement. For example, a buyer and seller having orally agreed on the terms of the sale, with or without assistance of an agent, contact an escrow company to handle their deal. Escrow instructions are prepared and signed without first entering into a real estate purchase agreement. Here, the escrow instructions bind the buyer and the seller as though they had entered into a purchase agreement. I will occasionally get somebody who calls me who says that they've got a deal and they're FSBO and they're asking me all these different questions or whatnot. I answer all the questions. I refer them to an escrow officer. And the truth is a lot of times they end up coming back. They end up coming back because it's a lot of work, even if escrow is handling a lot of it, to manage a transaction properly. Attached to all these various purchase agreements are one or more addenda regarding, also it exposes FSBOs to a lot more risk. That's the truth. A lot more risk, a lot more liability. Disclosures about the property, the financing or the paid of the property, agency relationship law, and special provisions called for by the needs of the buyer or seller. In this chapter, the focus of the needs of the newly licensed and thus limited to documenting and managing the negotiations of a single-family residence real estate transaction. The document reviewed here is the purchase agreement used in SFR sales transactions structured for conventional financing of the purchase price. Analyzing the purchase agreement. A buyer's agent uses the purchase agreement 1 to 4 unit transaction, 1 to 4 unit residential units, conventional and carryback financing, to prepare and submit the buyer's written offer to purchase a 1 to 4 unit residential property. The pricing and terms for performance are limited to conventional financing, a takeover of existing mortgages, a carryback note, or a combination of some of these arrangements. This purchase agreement is also properly used by sellers when confronted and with counter-offer situations. The seller's agent prepares an entirely new purchase agreement, then submits it as a fresh offer to sell in terms different from those of an unacceptable purchase offer received from the buyer. So this is the purchase agreement. We're not going to go over this too much right now. This is the kind of thing that once you join a brokerage, there are live training contracts, I think, every week in EXP. Most places are like that at this point. So this is the purchase agreement. You'll see there are some such sections that are standard, which you'll familiarize yourself with, and then the places where they enter different things in, and whatnot, all of those things will stand out in bold. I can tell you there's a lot of agents who don't know how to write these things anyway, and that's okay. We like to try to help them out when we can. On acceptance, the purchase agreement becomes a binding written contract between the buyer and seller. To be enforceable, the price and terms for performance need to be clear, concise, and complete to prevent misunderstandings. To this end, a comprehensive purchase agreement includes a boilerplate, all provisions that might be needed, and a likely transaction. They are designed to serve as a checklist of provisions an agent is to consider when preparing an offer. The various conventional financing arrangements and conditions as prudent buyer considers when making an offer to purchase a home are tightly worded for easy selection. This is the continuation of the purchase agreement. It is several pages long and constantly changing. Okay, components of the purchase agreement. There's the identification of the property, the price and terms, the acceptance and performance, the property conditions, and again, I'm not going to go over all this right now, the closing conditions, notice of supplemental property tax, notice regarding gas hazardous liquid pipelines, brokerage and agency, and signatures. This is all stuff that is like very boring, very tedious. It will be the kind of thing that when you start rocking and rolling in your career, you'll be docu-signing this kind of stuff to people, and you'll say, give me a call with any questions. And I can tell you, most people do not call you with a whole heck of a lot of questions. And when they do call you, when you docu-sign it to them, they're normally very clear and concise, and they say, these are my specific questions. And then you get to go ahead and knock those out. Okay. And of course, you will familiarize yourself with all of this stuff later on, but it's just tedious, and I don't want to do it. Observations. As a policy of the publisher to provide users of RPI, Realty Publications, Inc., forms with maximum loss reduction, the RPI purchase agreement does not contain clauses which tend to increase the risk of litigation or are generally felt to work against the best interest of the buyer, seller, and broker. Excluded provisions include the attorney fee provision. So these are RPI forms. You're going to be using forms by CAR, the California Association of Realtors, when you get signed up here. So page 191 or 193, like I said, we're going to have some homework and we're going to read for a couple more minutes here. Mandated for purchase agreement, the agency relationship of brokers and their agreement or their agents to their principals is required to be disclosed to all properties and targeted transactions. This includes the sale, exchange, or long-term lease of a 1 to 4 unit residential property, commercial property, mobile home, and more. This relationship is disclosed in the agency confirmation provision located in all written negotiations to purchase or lease and lease agreements. The agency confirmation provision states the existence of non-existence of each broker's fiduciary agency with the various parties of the transaction. Each broker identifies the party they are acting on behalf of as their agent in the transaction. Thus, one broker does not state the agency relationship of any other broker involved in the transaction. For example, the buyer's broker does not include the seller's broker's agency in the agency confirmation and the broker's identification provision in the purchase agreement form. Further, an agency law disclosure is provided each time any broker prepares a purchase agreement. The separate disclosure confirms the broker's specific agency in the transaction and is attached as a reference addendum. The agency law disclosure is an explanation of the duties owed to each party in a sales transaction by the broker and agents involved. The agency law disclosure is signed by the buyer, then signed by the seller on an acceptance of the offer or submission of a counteroffer. Statutory jargon. The contents of the agency confirmation provisions require the broker and their agents to first understand the statutory definition of agent, seller's agent, also known as listing agent, and buyer's agent, also referred to as selling agent. Isn't that confusing? Sub-agent and dual agent. The statutory definitions of these agency terms and their meanings are oftentimes different from the jargon used among brokers and agency in the multiple listing service environment. For example, by statutory definition, an agent retained by a client is always a broker. This broker is usually represented through the efforts of a licensed sales agent employed by the broker. In the jargon of the real estate industry, a sales agent employed by the broker is always called an agent, and practiced and licensed brokers never refer to themselves as brokers or an agent. We kind of went over a lot of this stuff in earlier chapters. By statute, the agent employed by the broker is defined by an associate licensee, an agent of the agent, not an agent of the client. Only the broker can be an agent of the client. Sales agents are not permitted to have clients. Sales agents are always employees of the client's agents to the broker. However, for income tax purposes, agents may be classified in employment contracts with their brokers as independent contractors. Okay, 195, we're going to stop there, which means that you guys are going to have 205, 215. You're going to have 24 pages of homework. Again, like I said, all of these tests are open book. If you do not get to it, it's okay. We kind of want you to have a basic understanding before you mail off for your main test. That way you don't have so much homework cramming. So we are not going to go over just who is the selling agent. The seller's agent is the buyer's agent. The use of agency confirmation. Buyers shown in-house listings. Property listed by another broker is located for a buyer but for the selling broker. Let's see. So all of these little diagrams should go relatively quickly for you guys. And then we are not going to read the appraisal report, chapter 29. Let's see. Types of lots. So cul-de-sac, key lot, corner lot, analyzing the data, the market comparison approach. All of this appraisal stuff, you're going to read it on your own. We're not going to do it. And of course, when you get these, the ebooks for all of these, there are these little videos here that you guys can watch about all of this different stuff that is put on by First Tuesday, where you guys could get a little bit of extra information about these chapters. Okay, so 209, 10 more pages here. So we're not going to read the escrow, the way to perform. Escrow is sort of the center of the entire transaction. They are the neutral party handling the transaction. Lots of great escrow officers here in the Temecula Valley. 215. All right, so where we are going to pick back up, let's see, today is Wednesday. We're going to pick back up tomorrow is right here with the basics of California real estate law. I'm going to check the chat group right now to see if you had any questions while we were going. Will we get the phone number package before or after we start becoming finders? What was your phone number again? My phone number is 951. I'm going to put this up here for you. All right. Post this here for you. 951 691 7798. I'm going to put that up on the screen here. Hopefully I won't get a bunch of strange, weird calls on YouTube, but hopefully I will, right? So it's 951 691 7798. That is my direct cell phone number. Feel free to text me or leave a message, and I'll call you back when I can. I do keep a very packed schedule, but I'm always happy to schedule a phone call and even jump on a Zoom with anyone that has any questions. So feel free to keep that number and utilize it throughout your career. I'm around. I'm not going anywhere. Hopefully. I'm 35 years old, 35 years young. Got 5 kids. I can't kick the bucket just yet. All right, will we get the phone number package before or after we start becoming finders? So part of what I was talking about with James before we got started in the class today was about some of these programs that Amy is working on developing before we get started or as part of our commission boot camp. We're talking to, and I don't want to name any names right now, but we're talking to several different lead generation companies, including a dialing company that would give you the ability to what's called circle prospect. And what that means is that you pick an area, and then you could literally start calling people around an area, around your neighborhood. You could start calling to introduce people. Hi, my name is, this is James. I'm calling with our community real estate school, and I'm just calling to see if there's any way, or if you're interested in buying or selling any real estate this year, and if there's anything that I could do or any questions I can answer for you. And then if they have any questions whatsoever, you immediately pass them along. There's a lot of different ways that you could develop rapport with people. One of those ways is Zach taught about in Commission Bootcamp is the Ford model, which is family, occupation, recreation, and what was the second one? Dreams. Or the fourth one is dreams. So family, occupation, recreation, dreams. You don't necessarily have to talk about real estate to help people buy and sell real estate, and in fact, it will end up keeping you out of trouble. A lot of times, the best things that you could do is talk about the best thing you can do is listen, ask the right questions, and then get people to talk. All right, any other questions here for me? So our goal is to develop all of these different relationships with all of these different packages, coaching companies, lead generation companies, etc., so that you can then participate as a part of this Finder program for free in these different packages for this 15-week period. If you're watching on YouTube, 8 years from now, we probably aren't going to have all the same cool bells and whistles as we have right now, which is why we're trying to get everyone rocking and rolling. But that being said, we're going to try to get this stuff going, and we're going to try to keep this machine going forever, so that as long as people are wanting to buy and sell real estate, there will be people who want to become real estate agents. Okay, James, any other questions for me, my brother? Okay, have an excellent Wednesday. I will see you tomorrow at the same time, same bat channel. Have a good day, my friend.
You too, thank you.
Bye. Okay. And if you're watching on YouTube, feel free to hit the subscribe button. Feel free to like us on Facebook, and feel free to reach out to me directly. You've got my number right here on the screen, 951-691-7798. Have a great day, everyone.